Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this episode, we are going to make some additional progress, or make some big progress rather, on Jared's new SRT-4 turbo header. So, last episode we went ahead and made the secondary section, and today we're going to work on the primaries. So if you see, I've labeled each of the ports from left to right, 1 through 4. And on the insides of each of the collector inlets, we have 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, and 4 here. Kind of as a preliminary location in terms of where these tubes are going to be located. So, we'll have to figure out how to snake the tubes through the space that I've allotted for myself, while leaving a pocket kind of in this area to allow the exhaust to run through. So I played around with this a little bit off camera when Jared was out here yesterday, and have kind of a rough idea of how this is going to go, but until I actually begin stringing tubes, I won't know for sure how this is all going to it's going to play out. So before I ramble on incessantly, let's go ahead and start trying to fit some of this and see how it ends up. Primary number 1 is fabricated on Jared's turbo header. So this is how it runs. I ovaled the tube a bit to go into the head flange, as obviously we have a change in shape from port to tube there, and once I get this thing more solidified, more welded in place and everything else, I'll come in and actually dolly the inside of that tube before I weld it to the inside of the flange, just to make it that much better of a transition. But now that we have number 1 done, I'm going to come in and next do number 4. So 4 will go to this port right here, and then we'll have to deal with 2 and 3 snaking through here somewhere up to these ports, which they more than likely will end up going through this gap right here, and it'll look pretty cool, kind of like Medusa's snake hair when everything is said and done. But let me go get some lunch, get back from that, and we'll keep rocking with this thing. After a very long day, we now have a fabricated header for Jared's SRT-4. So here's what we ended up with, and I am stoked with the way that this came out. Now, typically when I build headers like this, there always ends up being one primary that looks kind of goofy, looks a little bit out of place. And the closest to that with this header is primary number 4 over here. But with the smooth snaking that it has and the nice organic flow that it has, is what I'm trying to say, I don't hate it at all. And it gives nice access down to the starter, be easy to reach all of the fasteners on the head flange, and I'm very happy with this. So this is the end of the day now. I've been out here for probably going on 12 hours at this point in time working on this thing, but tomorrow we'll come in and weld these primaries up, and then at that point in time the manifold will be ready, or the header rather, will be ready for final assembly. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we'll get some good time under hood in. And we are back to weld up Jared's primaries today. So yesterday, obviously, we came in and built Jared's turbo header. So today, obviously, all of the primaries are just fabricated, and we need to make them all one piece respectively. So that's what the task today is. So I'll take all 4 of these tubes off of this assembly and weld them up. So this thing is a little bit tricky to disassemble, as most slip collectors like this end up being. It's a dance of loosening things and shimming parts out of the assembly, but no big deal. And I guess without me rambling on any farther, let me go ahead, pull this apart, and we can get to welding. With all 4 of the primaries out of the assembly, I guess, you can see how they are all shaped. So they're obviously not equal length, but I at least tried to make them build the longest one and then have the other ones at least in the ballpark of reasonably the same length to suit. So the shortest one ends up being what I've labeled primary 4, which is the one that comes off of this port on the head, and the longest one appears to be number 2 right here. But that's no matter, as with the turbo car, equal length really isn't all that necessary. So the same way that I usually weld primaries, the order that I usually go in, I'll go from the least visible first to the most visible last. And in this instance, we're going to start with this number 2 primary and then work our way through the rest of them. So without further ado, let's go over on the bench, get some gas flowing through it, and get to welding. Jared's primaries are hot off the press, and these things came out very nicely. So they're all back purged, obviously, and welds came out really nicely. Very happy with everything. And now we need to continue with the final assembly. So the next order of business is to take the dual slip cups, which have 4 of these. These go over the end of the primary, so it'll go in that area right there, and then they slide over top of the outside of the collector body itself. And this provides a dual layer of sealing, obviously, and as things heat up and expand, they seal up and you'll have a leak-proof slip joint. So once these cool off a little bit, as the final primary is literally probably 30 seconds removed from the welding bench, I'll go ahead and start tailor fitting these cups to each one of the primaries, getting everything put back in position, and at that point I'll roll the welder over, tack the primaries in place, and then we can begin the final welding portion of this. Tech tip time now. So when you are working with dual slip collectors like these, the premise of them is the actual tube primary itself slides inside of the collector, and then you have this cup that slides over top of both the primary tube and the collector. So what we need to do is mimic the collector going on the inside of this cup and around the tube. So what I like to do is take a little stub of this being, these are 2-inch primaries going into the collector. So when you're sleeving tubes inside of other tubes, they go up in 8-inch increments. So if we have a 2-inch primary, we need a piece of 2 1/8-inch tubing to slide over top of it. So right here I have my 2 1/8-inch stub, and I'll slide this into place and tap it down and everything else. And at that point, we are mimicking the collector going inside of the dual slip assembly and alleviating the possibility of this cup moving around and making it difficult, if not impossible, to reassemble the header when everything is said and done. So what I also like to do is take just a little bit of anti-seize and I'll put it on the tube stub going inside of this cup, and this is just to provide a little bit of lubricant. So put some on the inside and the outside and just smear it around. And you don't want to put too much on where it's seeping through the seam that you're about to weld, but you want enough where it's going to actually slip and not cause you issues that way. So something like this is probably good. It's probably a little bit thick on the inside, but that is no big deal. And at this point I'll clean my finger off, and then we can go ahead, put our tube stub in, get a purge started, and get this cup welded, and then repeat the process 3 additional times. All of the dual slip cups are now welded to their respective primaries. So here's what we're left with, and the welds on the cups didn't come out too badly. So now what we need to do is first lubricate the secondary collector assembly here. So I'll put some anti-seize, high temp anti-seize on the inside and outside of each one of the inlet tubes there. And then we can put all of these together, and the last thing I want to do in this episode is roll the welder back over, tack all of these onto the head flange, and pull the whole assembly out. A, because I want to see it, and B, because the next thing, and second to last major thing, will be welding the primaries to the head flange. And after that we'll have to put EGT bungs in, but that's a pretty quick, easy and seamless thing to do. So let me go ahead, get some anti-seize on the collector, and then we can get to putting this together. After a long couple of days, we have Jared's new turbo header fabricated, mostly welded, and ready for the finishing touches. So here is what we ended up with. And this might be my favorite header that I've built so far. Really happy with everything has came out so far, and I'm just thrilled overall with this. So looks really cool. All the dual slip stuff went together without much issue. You saw I had to get the dead blow out a little bit, but that's no big deal. It just kind of comes with the territory with these dual slip collectors and dual slip manifolds. So attacked in 4 places on each one of the tubes going into the head flange, and I'll need to come in on the inside, actually dolly the tubes so they'll fit to the actual inside contours of each one of the ports. But that's something that I'll do later on, as I'm done working for today on this thing and just ready to get out of here for the day. But I'm absolutely stoked with the way this thing has come out, and I can't wait to get it finished up the rest of the way. Once the header is completely finished for Jared's car, we'll need to come in and mount his intercooler, because at that, pretty much everything else hedges off of the location of the intercooler. And once that is all squared away, then I can get to building the exhaust, get to building the intercooler tube, and finishing up the rest of the items on the list for this project. But those projects will be for later episodes, as we're about to finish this one up. So as always, thank you guys very much for tuning in, for watching projects big and small and interesting and whatever else come together. And things like this SRT-4, that this is one of my favorite projects that I've worked on so far, and I can't wait to make more progress on it. But like I said, that'll be for later, and we're done for now. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next episode.